Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda, and please welcome to our Operation Freedom platform, WeThePeopleProcessing.com. You know, are you tired of being threatened to be canceled just because you have a company focused on liberty and freedom? Well, worry no more, folks. WeThePeopleProcessing.com is your go-to merchant services, freedom-based company to provide business service payment solutions. We the People Processing provides their clients a cancel culture-free platform which is domestically based. They provide competitive rates, no contracts with next-day funding, a fully vetted and like-minded financial infrastructure, and full support for integrations, implementation, and e-commerce efforts. Bottom line, WeThePeopleProcessing.com focuses on defending your company's free market growth, values, and future. Check them out at www.WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Once you're on the site, enter in password Operation Freedom or call 855-499-2024. That's WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Then, when on the website, enter Operation Freedom as your password or call 855-499-2024. Welcome back to Operation Freedom, folks. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting my ancillary bunker linked to our main freedom bunker in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor. Here every Sunday for you live from 2 to 5 Eastern. Also available 24/7 at davejanda.com. In the final segment of our Sunday show before Thanksgiving, it is a tradition on this platform that I channel Ruth Janda, my mom, the history teacher, and I provide the story that she taught to her 6-year-old son, David, about the real Thanksgiving story. It's a story that the globalist cult do not want you to be aware of, about the real Thanksgiving. My mom was a saint, but she also had grown up on the south side of Chicago. And she would give you the shirt off her back, but she was also an incredible fighter. As my dad used to say, I do not hold a candle to your mother when someone tries to attack a member of our family. Your mother is the toughest opponent that anyone who attacks our family will ever come in contact with. And then he used to say, God help them, because that's the only entity that will be able to help them in the end. I say that because if she was alive today, she would be doing everything possible to take on this globalist cult, to help as many Americans as she could, because she saw our country and its citizens as her extended family. When it was not fashionable to call out the government, she did. I was going through a file the other day, and I came across a quote. I had written it down that she had made to me. Here's what she said. The government is a drug dealer and wants to make you a junkie and wants you addicted to their fears and their lies. And they want you ignorant of history.
Well, if you look over the past several decades, there has been a push by our government to push for programs that are not based on freedom or liberty, but based on totalitarianism. I mean, just look at the past 3 years. Pure, unadulterated totalitarianism. The good news is that so many people have turned away from the bought-off lamestream fake media, the tentacle of the deep state, and they have tuned into the independent media, not alternative media, independent media, that there has been a huge awakening of what the syndicate has done to every person of the world's freedoms and liberties. Let me play a clip that actually ran out of Great Britain, entitled Never Again. This is truly an example of the awakening of the globalist cult going a bridge too far. Derek, hit it.
Just one thing first. Joe Biden called it a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Andrew Neil, formerly of this parish, spoke of punishing the unvaccinated. Jeremy Vine spoke figuratively of holding people down and forcibly jabbing them. Oddly, the smiling fascist Justin Trudeau of Canada called the unvaccinated racist. Quite a leap, that one, and a bit rich from a man famous for blackface. But as a spokesperson from Pfizer admitted in the Dutch Parliament this week, the vaccine was never tested for transmission, in other words, stopping you giving COVID to others. So what the authorities told us about stopping the spread with a jab was a total lie. Take it to protect Granny, a historic falsehood. Whilst safe for most, though we can't be sure, we don't have long-term data, large numbers of people around the world have suffered severe side effects, and some, including former BBC presenter Lisa Shaw, have died. Lisa, a healthy woman in her 40s, here pictured with her husband Gareth. She statistically did not need the jab, but based upon the idea that somehow she was helping others, she took one for the team. She's gone now. Her husband, a widower, her young son without his mummy. The conspiracy theorists, the Tin Hat Brigade, the so-called anti-vaxxers, who were no such thing but simply wanted personal choice, were right all along. For the record, I'm triple jabbed. But did I need it? You tell me. We will never forget the politicians, the corporations and the high-profile celebrities and TV doctors who needlessly coerced us into having the vaccine. They've got blood on their hands. Never forgive, never forget, and never again.
Never again. Never again should anyone buy into any government official, any regulator, any, quote, leader of industry, i.e. Sam Bankman-Fried. No, folks. It goes back to what Ruth Janda said. They want you addicted to their fear, to their lies, and they want you ignorant of history. Which brings me to the real Thanksgiving story. 6 years of age, I come home. My mom asked me, what'd you do at school today? There was a Thanksgiving play, and I told her about that, the usual Thanksgiving play with the Pilgrims and the Indians and the feast. And my mom said, that's a really great story, Dave, but let's talk about what really happened. And then she told me what Thanksgiving was really about. Not about turkeys and stuffing and no, but about individual empowerment, about freedom, about free markets, and not government and government intervention. This story was also exact same story that my mom told me was brought forward, called The Great Thanksgiving Hoax by Richard Mayberry. And let me read it to you. This official story is nothing like what really happened. It's a fairy tale, a whitewashed and sanitized collection of half-truths which divert attention away from the Thanksgiving's real meaning. The official story has the Pilgrims boarding the Mayflower, coming to America, establishing the Plymouth colony in the winter of 1620 to 1621. This first winter is hard. Half the colonists die, but the survivors are hardworking and tenacious, and they learn new farming techniques from the Indians. The harvest of 1621 is bountiful. The Pilgrims hold a celebration and give thanks to God. They are grateful for the wonderful new abundant land he has given them. The official story then has the Pilgrims living more or less happily ever after, each year repeating the first Thanksgiving. Other early colonies also had hard times at first, but they soon prosper and adopt the annual tradition of giving thanks for this prosperous new land called America. The problem with this official story is that the harvest of 1621 was not bountiful, nor were the colonists hardworking or tenacious. In 1621 was a famine year, and many of the colonists were lazy thieves. Sound familiar? In his history of Plymouth Plantation, the governor of the colony, William Bradford, reported that the colonists went hungry for years because they refused to work in the fields. They preferred instead to steal food. Sound familiar? He says the colony was riddled with corruption and with confusion and discontent. The crops were small because much was stolen both by night and day before it became scarcely edible. But in subsequent years, something changes. In the harvest of 1623 was different. Suddenly, instead of famine, now God gave them plenty. In fact, in 1624, so much food was produced that the colonists were able to begin exporting corn. What happened? Well, let me tell you what didn't happen. Sam Bankman Fried's relatives surely didn't show up. Or Gary Gensler, or Barack Obama, or Joe Biden, or Kamala Harris. No. After the poor harvest of 1622, writes Bradford, quote, they began to think how they might raise as much corn as they could and obtain a better crop. They began to question their form of economic organization. This had required that, quote, all profits and benefits that are got by trade, working, fishing, or any other means were to be placed in the common stock of the colony, and that, quote, all such persons as are of this colony are to have their meat, drink, apparel, and all provisions out of the common stock, end quote. A person was to put into the common stock all he could and take out only what he needed. Can you say socialism? Yeah. This from each according to his ability to each according to his need was an early form of socialism, and is why the Pilgrims were starving. Bradford writes that, quote, young men that are most able and fit for labor and service complained about being forced to spend their time and strength to work for other men's wives and children. So the young and strong refused to work, and the total amount of food produced was never adequate. Sound familiar? Yeah. To rectify this situation, in 1623, Bradford abolished socialism. He gave each household a parcel of land and told them they could keep what they produced or trade it away as they saw fit. In other words, he replaced socialism with a free market. And that was the end of famines. Many early groups of colonists set up socialist states, all with the same terrible results. At Jamestown, established in 1607, out of every shipload of settlers that arrived, less than half would survive their first 12 months in America. Most of the work was being done by only 1/5 of the men. The other 4/5 choosing to be parasites. In the winter of 1609 to 1610, called the starving time, the population fell from 500 to just 60. Then the Jamestown colony was converted to a free market, just as Plymouth. And the results were every bit as dramatic as those at Plymouth. In 1614, Colony Secretary Ralph Hammer wrote that after the switch there was plenty of food which every man by his own industry may easily and doth procure. He said that when the socialist system had prevailed, we reaped not so much corn from the labors of 30 men as 3 men have done for themselves now. Before these free markets were established, the colonists had nothing for which to be thankful. But after free markets were established, the resulting abundance was so dramatic that the annual Thanksgiving celebrations became common throughout the colonies. And in 1863, Thanksgiving became a national holiday. And this was the same lesson my mom taught her 6-year-old son, David. Thus, the real reason for Thanksgiving, deleted from the official story by government sources, by the way, is the following. Socialism, let alone totalitarianism, does not work. The one and only source of abundance is free markets. And we thank God, we at least for now live in a country where we can have at least some semblance of a free market. My mom's lesson to her son at 6 years of age, and until the day she died, was to dig deep when it comes to history. Research it. Don't believe government sources. Research it. Because when you research it, you're going to find something very different from the lies and the propaganda that are being shoved down your mouth 24/7 by the syndicate and their propaganda arm, what I call the bought-off lamestream fake media. As she pointed out to me, it's about looking critically at events and situations, and then developing solutions, which sometimes can be very, very difficult, to the problems. And then taking the next step of implementing interventions to empower every American, not a select few. And when you implement interventions that empower individuals, you promote freedom. You promote the power of the individual and not a criminal enterprise of government that is based on lies, on deceit, and criminality. Just think of what those people in Jamestown and those people in Plymouth Colony faced. They had a decision to make. They could have stayed with the government-run system as is, but they were watching each other die. They were watching their futures and children die. And they made the very difficult decision, which meant far more work for them, but they chose freedom. I believe we're at a similar point in our history. We can either keep going on with the con perpetrated by government, Wall Street, the regulators, big corporations such as Big Pharma, or we can institute our own real Thanksgiving and decide that we're going to empower ourselves, that we're going to take control of our lives, of our future, of our country. One of the first things that we can do is take control of the election process. If you don't have a legitimate election process, you don't have a legitimate country. As we pointed out throughout the show today, there are people that will tell you that it's broken. There's nothing you can do to fix it. But today on this show, you heard nothing but solutions about identifying what the problems are that lead to these illegitimate elections, that lead to people getting installed that hide in their basement, people who can't put 4 words together, who refuse to debate, people who died a month before the election yet were still elected. No. We already have examples of people who are modern day William Bradfords. All those people, not just DeSantis, but all those people in Florida that stood up and said no to election fraud. No, we're going to address the issue. They didn't just keep on keeping on and hoping that this time it'll work out better than last time. They blocked mail-in voting. They stifled the use of drop boxes. They stopped ballot harvesting. They demanded voter ID. They instituted harsh legal ramifications for the criminals that were trying to steal the system, much like the criminals that were trying to steal food and shelter in Plymouth Colony and in Jamestown. Folks, I believe in a modern day, real Thanksgiving story. Only this time, maybe it didn't start in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Maybe this time it started in the state of Florida. And as I mentioned earlier today, a group of patriots who didn't buy into the status quo in Wisconsin and outed fraud